There's some basic steps in the Mokulito process, and the first step in the process is to actually select your plywood. There are two main plywoods that most artists use that you do Mokulito. The first one is maple, and maple has got a very, very simple grain. The other main plywood that is used is pink marine ply. You can also see the fairly heavy grain that's associated with the pink marine ply. Here is a sample of pink marine and the plywood. This is Girraween, and just an illustration that I did on a piece of pink marine ply. And the final print gives you an indication of how much grain actually comes through when you finally print this particular Mokulito. Using maple, this is an example of an illustration from the Grampians, and you can see the grain is not quite as obvious as the pink marine, and you can see by the final print the grain at the top of the Grampians has got its own character, but it's not as quite as pronounced. The next step in the process is to actually cut the plywood to the size you require. A lot of that will be dependent on the etching press that you've got. And the other thing to think about is whether or not you want the grain to go horizontal, or whether you would prefer that the image is changed around and is in a vertical format. Once you've got your design and your measurements sorted out, is we can mark up the image. One of the main materials that you use is what's called tuche, and tuche is simply ink in French, and you can buy ready-made tuche by Charbonnel, or alternatively by Rower and Klingner. And these are ready-made inks that you can pretty well use and either paint with a brush or use a nib pen to write directly onto the plywood plate. You've also got lithographic tuche, which I'll describe, which is a rubbing tuche, which I'll describe in detail a little bit further. And you've also got crayons that you can use to draw on the block itself. One of my favourite drawing materials is to make up my own tuche. It's available by Corns, but it's also available by Charbonnel. Using crayons is a great way to go as well. You can either do single lines, or you can do tonal areas that are slightly lighter and slightly lighter again, or we can actually use the side of the crayons as well. So using the pre-prepared tuche, you can also use a pen tool by dipping it into the ink and then drawing with the pen tool directly onto the wooden block and creating fairly fine lines as well. lines. You can also cut into the surface of the Mokulito. Now you can do very fine lines, or you can do very broad lines. Use one of my favourite tools, which is the scalpel scraper. You can also use it on its side, the actual tush, and create tonal effects as well.